Have you ever wondered where the Chinese, Japanese, and Korean people really came from? Not just their countries, but their ancestors. Their bloodlines, their languages, their roots. It's a question many people are curious about, but few really understand. Most think of China, Japan, and Korea as completely separate. Different countries, different people, different cultures. And while that's partly true, what if I told you they're more connected than most of us realize? In today's video, we lines travel thousands of years into the past to explore the true origin of these East Asian people. We'll look at ancient tribes, forgotten kingdoms, and mysterious migrations. We'll break down how these nations formed, what made them different, and what still ties them together even today. Whether you've always loved Asian history or you're just now discovering it, this story is going to surprise you. And by the end, you might see China, Japan, and Korea in a whole new light. So sit back, relax, and let's uncover a story that begins not with walls or wars, but with wanderers, warriors, and whispers of the past. Part 1. Ancient Beginnings, Before the Nations. Long before the words China, Japan, or Korea even existed, ancient humans were already living in East Asia. Scientists believe people began settling this region over 40,000 years ago, during the Ice Age. Back then, people lived in caves, hunted animals, and gathered plants to survive. These early humans didn't see themselves as Chinese or Korean. They were simply part of the land. Over time, they formed small tribes along rivers, coasts, and mountains. These tribes became the first building blocks of today's nations. But here's the twist: many of these early tribes shared common ancestors. They came from Central and Northern Asia, especially from areas we now call Siberia, Mongolia, and Manchuria. These regions were cold, harsh, and full of nomads, people who moved with the seasons. As these nomads traveled, they spread ideas, tools, languages, and genes across what would one day be China, Korea, and Japan. One early group that shaped all three cultures was the Mongoloid population, not to be confused with Mongols. This group spread across East Asia and helped create the physical features we now associate with East Asians, such as straight black hair, lighter skin, and certain eye shapes. Over thousands of years, these migrating groups slowly became more settled. Farming began, villages grew. And slowly, cultures began to form, each one unique, but still carrying pieces of the same ancient puzzle. Part 2. The Birth of China, the Mother Civilization. Let's start with China, the oldest continuous civilization in the world. China's story begins along two mighty rivers, the Yellow River in the north and the Yangtze River in the south. Around 5,000 years ago, early farmers began to build homes, raise animals, and grow rice and millet. These people weren't yet Chinese in the way we understand today, but they formed the roots of what would become Chinese civilization. One key tribe was the Huaxia people. They lived near the Yellow River and slowly merged with other local tribes. Together, they formed the early Chinese kingdoms, and from them came the legendary Xia, Shang, and Zhou dynasties. The Chinese also developed one of the first written languages, using characters instead of letters. Many of today's Chinese customs, Confucian values, ancestor worship, and respect for hierarchy began in these early times. Over centuries, China became a cultural giant. Its language, writing system, and political ideas spread far, especially to Korea and Japan. That's why China is often called the mother civilization of East Asia. But while China influenced its neighbors, the neighbors had stories of their own. Let's explore them. Part 3. The Origin of the Korean People. Now, let's move to Korea. Korea's ancient story is deeply tied to both northern China and Central Asia. The earliest known culture in Korea was the Julmun pottery period, around 8000 BC, known for some of the oldest pottery in the world. But the real turning point came with a legendary figure named Dangun, said to have founded Korea's first kingdom Gajoshin in 2333 BC. While historians debate this story, it's deeply meaningful to the Korean people. Gajoshin grew strong and proud, and it was influenced by Chinese culture but always remained distinct. Over time, more kingdoms formed: Goguryeo, Baekje, and Silla. These were known as the Three Kingdoms of Korea, and they constantly competed for power. Korean language and genetics show a mix of ancient Northern Asians and migrants from what is now China. But Korea developed its own language family, Koreanic, and even created Hangul, one of the most scientific writing systems ever designed. Korean culture is marked by strength through hardship. The people have survived invasions, colonization, and war but held on to their traditions with deep pride. Even though Korea took ideas like Buddhism and Confucianism from China, it reshaped them into something uniquely Korean. Part 4. The origin of the Japanese people. Now, let's cross the sea to Japan. Japan's early settlers were different from those in Korea and China. The first known people in Japan were the Jomon, hunter-gatherers who lived on the islands as far back as 14,000 years ago. They had a unique culture and made beautiful pottery. But around 300 BC, a new wave of people came from the Korean peninsula. These migrants were part of the Yayoi culture. They brought farming, metal tools, and knowledge from both Korea and China. These two groups, Jomon and Yayoi, blended over time to form the early Japanese people. Japan was influenced heavily by China. Writing, Buddhism, and government ideas were all adopted. But the Japanese always put their own spin on it. They created a royal family said to descend from the sun goddess and formed a culture of honor, ritual, and nature worship. Japanese language is different from Chinese and Korean. It's part of a unique family possibly connected to ancient languages in Siberia or even Polynesia. To this day, its true origin is still debated. What makes Japan fascinating is its blend of influences. Chinese writing, Korean farming, Jomon spirit, all forming something uniquely Japanese. Part 5. How Chinese, Japanese, and Koreans are different now that we've explored where the Chinese, Japanese, and Korean people come from. It's time to talk about what makes them different. Because while their roots are connected and their histories have touched each other again and again, these three cultures have taken very different paths. Each one has developed its own language, style, food, beliefs, and way of life. Let's break it down. 1. Language. This is one of the biggest and most obvious differences. Chinese is a tonal language. That means the meaning of a word can change based on the tone you use. It also uses characters, not an alphabet. Each character represents a full word or idea. It's one of the oldest written languages still in use today. Korean is very different. It has an alphabet called Hangul, which was created in the 1400s by King Sejong. It's easy to learn and sounds smooth and rhythmic. Korean is not tonal like Chinese. It was built to help common people read and write. Japanese is somewhere in between. It borrows Chinese characters called kanji, but also has two alphabets, hiragana and katakana. Japanese is not tonal, but it has a very polite and formal system depending on who you're speaking to. Even though they may look similar to outsiders, these languages are not mutually understandable. A Chinese speaker can't automatically understand Japanese or Korean, and vice versa. 2. Cultural values. All three cultures care deeply about family, respect, and education, but they express it in unique ways. In China, the culture is built on Confucianism, which teaches respect for elders, harmony in society, and loyalty to family. Hierarchy is important, and decisions are often made with the group in mind. In Korea, similar Confucian values apply, but they're often mixed with a deep sense of national pride and survival. Korean history includes many invasions and hardships, which has created a strong sense of unity and resilience. Age, status, and family honor are taken very seriously. In Japan, the focus is often on group harmony, politeness, and inner discipline. People avoid direct conflict, value modesty, and take pride in doing things with precision and beauty. From tea ceremonies to folding a letter, small things matter deeply. 3. Food and eating habits. Each country has its own unique cuisine and each one reflects the values of its culture. Chinese food is all about balance and variety. Sweet, salty, spicy, and sour all appear on the same table. Meals are meant to be shared, and rice or noodles are always at the center. China's food changes greatly from region to region. Korean food is spicy, fermented, and full of bold flavors. Dishes like kimchi, bibimbap, and bulgogi are now popular worldwide. Koreans value banchan, a variety of small side dishes, and communal eating is very important. Japanese food is simple, delicate, and focused on seasonal freshness. Think sushi, miso soup, and rice with pickled vegetables. Presentation is key. How the food looks matters as much as how it tastes. Meals are quiet, almost meditative. 4. Fashion and appearance. Fashion also tells us a lot about how these cultures express themselves. In China, fashion blends modern styles with traditional colors like red and gold. There's pride in cultural symbols, but also a drive toward trend-setting and international brands. In Korea, fashion is very trend-sensitive. K-beauty and K-fashion are global exports now. People care a lot about looking polished, clean, and stylish. Even casual wear is carefully put together. In Japan, the fashion world is full of contrast. Some prefer minimalist, timeless looks, while others dive into colorful subcultures like Harajuku style. Japanese people often express their identity through fashion, artfully and privately. 5. Daily life and modern identity. Even with all the differences in tradition, these cultures continue to evolve. China is modernizing fast with big cities, cutting-edge technology, and growing global influence. Still, Chinese holidays and traditional values hold strong. Korea has become a pop culture powerhouse. Korean dramas, music, and tech are shaping youth all over the world, but Korean society still holds on to discipline and structure. Japan remains a mix of old and new. Ancient temples sit beside bullet trains. People honor tradition while embracing innovation. There's pride in doing things the Japanese way, so yes, they are different in many ways. But those differences are what make their shared history so fascinating. Next, let's talk about what still connects them deep down. Part 6. How Chinese, Japanese, and Koreans are still connected. Now that we've explored what makes Chinese, Japanese, and Korean people different, let's take a step back and look at what still connects them even today. Because despite the wars, rivalries, and borders that now separate them, these three nations are still tied together by deep, historical roots. And those roots run much deeper than most people realize. 1. Shared ancient ancestry. All three peoples, Chinese, Japanese, and Koreans, can trace part of their bloodline to the same ancient populations. Many of their ancestors came from the north of Asia, especially from regions like Siberia, Manchuria, and even Central Asia. Over thousands of years, these ancient tribes moved, mixed, and spread across East Asia. They carried similar tools, farming methods, and genes with them. Even though they settled in different areas and developed unique cultures, they share similar genetic markers. This is why many East Asians have certain common physical traits: black straight hair, similar skin tone, and particular eye shapes. Science now proves that long ago, before China, Korea, and Japan had names, their people once walked the same land. 2. Influence of ancient China. Another powerful link between these three cultures is the influence of ancient China. Thousands of years ago, China was the most advanced and powerful civilization in East Asia. It had writing, government systems, cities, art, philosophy, and technology, while other areas were still developing. As Chinese civilization spread, it influenced its neighbors, especially Korea and Japan. Korea adopted Chinese characters, Confucian values, and Buddhism. Japan did too. Both countries modeled parts of their early governments and cultures after China while still keeping their own traditions. Even though they don't use Chinese writing as much today, the early foundation of reading, government, and spiritual beliefs in Korea and Japan came from ancient China. That's why historians often call China the cultural mother of East Asia. Confucian values and respect culture, all three countries still share similar values that came from Confucianism, a philosophy started by the Chinese thinker Confucius more than 2,500 years ago. Confucianism teaches respect for elders, loyalty to family, the importance of education, social harmony, and duty. These ideas deeply shaped the way people in China, Korea, and Japan think and live even today. In all three cultures, people still bow to elders. Students still study hard to honor their families. Society places a high value on order, politeness, and discipline. Even when the languages and foods are different, you can still feel a similar attitude in how people behave and what they believe is right. 4. Buddhism and spiritual influence. Buddhism is another deep connection. Buddhism began in India, but it spread to China around the 1st century AD. From there, it traveled into Korea, and from Korea, it entered Japan. Each country adapted Buddhism in its own way, creating different styles of temples, art, and rituals. But the peaceful teachings of the Buddha, the focus on mindfulness, suffering, and the search for wisdom are still present in all three cultures. Even if many modern people don't practice Buddhism every day, its influence can be seen in their values, customs, and architecture. 5. East Asian cultural sphere. There's a special term historians use for this connection: the East Asian cultural sphere. It's like a cultural family made up of China, Korea, Japan, and sometimes Vietnam. These countries may not always agree politically, but they share a common foundation built over centuries. They share similar holidays like Lunar New Year, traditional medicine using herbs, and balance, love for calligraphy, poetry, and nature. Deep respect for ancestors and heritage. Even in modern times, you can see these connections in how homes are built, how meals are shared, and how society operates. 6. Modern challenges. Shared paths. In today's fast-moving world, all three countries face similar issues: aging populations, technology shifts, economic competition, and global influence. They each want to protect their own identity, but at the same time, they are watching and learning from one another. Korean dramas are popular in Japan. Chinese tourists visit Korean temples. Japanese companies work with Chinese engineers. Despite the competition, there's quiet cooperation. And that's because deep down, they remember, even if unconsciously, that their roots aren't all that far apart. So yes, they are different in language, culture, and politics. But underneath it all, they are connected through shared bloodlines, shared values, and a shared past. History may divide, but it also reminds. In the final section, we'll talk about why this matters more than ever today. Stay with us. So, why does all this matter? Because in a world that often focuses on differences, history reminds us of connection. China, Japan, and Korea may speak different languages and have their own flags, but their stories began in the same places: in the forests of Siberia, along the rivers of ancient China, across the seas between kingdoms. And today, they're still writing history. China is a rising global power. Korea is a cultural wave spreading K-pop, K-dramas, and innovation. Japan is a blend of ancient spirit and modern precision. They may compete in business or sports, but deep down, they carry echoes of each other. So the next time you eat sushi, hear a Chinese proverb, or watch a Korean drama, remember, these aren't just modern trends. They're the result of thousands of years of movement, struggle, survival, and creativity. You're not just watching history, you're seeing it live. And maybe that's the real message here. We're all more connected than we think. Our ancestors walked across the same earth, drank from the same rivers, dreamed under the same sky. So instead of asking, how are we different? Maybe the better question is, how are we family? Thanks for watching. If you found this video eye-opening, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more deep dives into world history, ancestry, and culture. Until next time, stay curious.